I'm Tori, and today I'm going to be reviewing the book Doomed Queens, Royal Women Who Met Bad Ends from Cleopatra to Princess Di, written by Kris Waldherr. So this book is a lot of fun. It's just a brief little synopsis of the lives of all kinds of different royal women who had various bad things happen to them. So each royal woman will have just like a brief little summary of her life. Usually they're only about 2 pages. Some of them go on for 3 or 4 pages depending on how complicated the woman's life was. And it's just kind of a little blurb so you can get to know something about that queen. So at the beginning of each story, you will see the royal woman's death date and this little symbol. And there is a key at the front of the book, and that little symbol describes how she died. Though not all of them died, some of them were deposed or divorced. So it wasn't horribly tragic for all of them, just most of them. So the women in here are sorted chronologically by date of death. The first royal mentioned died in 835 BCE. And the most modern one was 1997, so it is a wide range of time periods. There are some different fun illustrations for not every royal, but some of them. So at the front of the book, there's a little timeline that goes over all of the different queens. And then it's divided into sections. And so for each of those chapters, there'll be just like a little page of introduction, and there'll be a quote from a famous doomed royal. And then at the end of every chapter, there's a little quiz about what you've just read. And it feels kind of like a quiz in a women's magazine or something. It's very funny and lighthearted. There were also lots of kind of little side note sections and just cute little illustrations that made this really easy to just kind of breeze through. And then I love the inside cover pages. They're just so pretty. Oh, and then at the end of the book, there is a quiz to find out if you are in fact a doomed queen. So I had a lot of fun reading this book. It's very funny in a dark way, and it gives you a quick little summary of each royal woman that the book talks about. They're not all queens, but most of them are. Or at least some sort of ruling person, depending on what they name the ruler in that country. My biggest complaint with the book is that since most of the little blurbs are only 2 pages long, and the longest ones only go up to 4 pages, it's not really enough time to get to know much about the women, and it almost felt like I was at a museum exhibit just going through and reading the little plaques by the displays. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of information. So my favorites were actually when they would have either several women in the same family, where you would have like sisters or mothers and daughters or someone where the story kind of builds, and so it would go on and you get more of a picture of their general lives. Or when it was someone I had heard of before, so that I could kind of, you know, build on my existing knowledge, and that kind of made it more fun. So I think my favorite chapter was the Renaissance Revels chapter, because that talked a lot about England's Tudor dynasty, and I know quite a bit about that already, plus it forms a pretty cohesive story. You know, it was a relatively short period of time for how many women ruled, so you get a fairly full picture of the way that whole dynasty kind of played out, so that was really fun. So this book is definitely not for someone who's interested in hardcore history. It is quite sensationalized. They make sure to only include like doomed queens in here who horrible things actually happened to, but some of them seem a little iffy. You know, they ended up surviving for quite a few years after the main horrible thing happened to them, and then they died of some other horrible thing that seems unrelated to the main reason they're famous. But this was a nice little melodramatic, darkly humorous little book. It was a great kind of introduction to famous royal women. I also thought it did a decent job of portraying royals who weren't just European, because at least when I was in school, we mostly learned about European history. So it was nice to hear a little bit about royals from other cultures too. So I like this book. It was simple and breezy. I would have liked it if it went a little bit more in depth and maybe told me some more information about the royals, but it was a good little introduction, and I would recommend it for anyone who's interested in slightly morbid history.